Podcasting from deep in the heart of North America, 5 influential podcasters from coast to coast come together to discuss a variety of topics from around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Power Hour.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Coast Power. I know what you're saying. Who the hell is that ugly ass sitting on the screen right now? Well, I'm Christopher Stolle of Breaking the Fourth Wall and Realm of the Mist Entertainment, and I get to host this one, but I am being joined by the normal host, the host of In a City Like Yours, Mr. Michael G. Moore.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be back and our first time on video. I normally host with just audio, so this is my first here with doing the video thing. So you get to see my ugly mug.
And then, of course, Michael and I had decided to stage an intervention here because our next participant, he's not feeling himself. He's got a weight of the world on his shoulders. All the violence is very much a monkey on his back. The host of Try Not to Laugh podcast, Mr. Andy Flegel.
Greetings. How's it going, guys? I knew this was an intervention. You said we were going to the carnival.
I said we would get ice cream on the way to the hospital. So, so guys, we have a couple of topics of conversation. First and foremost, when this episode comes out, happy 4th of July to each and every one of you. Hope you guys are celebrating it safely, practicing your social distancing, wear masks where you have to. Don't burn your hands or other body parts off with fireworks. But get drunk and play with things that blow up. That's the American way right there. And we are going to hit into a little bit of 4th of July traditions, but I think we'll start off with what Michael and I were talking about before we started recording, and that was the British shows and reality TV shows. Love them or hate them. I'll let you guys start off, and then I'll throw my 2 cents in, but I guess we'll start with Andy because we haven't heard him yet. Andy, where are you at on the idea of like across the pond entertainment or our rash of reality shows?
As far as British shows go, there are only a couple that I've actually seen more than one episode of, and those are Toast of London and The Mighty Boosh. The Mighty Boosh has it's kind of like a skit comedy show, similar to Chappelle's Show, but it's like very, very, very strange British comedy. They've got characters like Crack Fox, who is literally a crack-addicted fox, and or Old Greg, who you may have seen a lot of memes of him online. I'm Old Greg, and the other is Toast of London, which is this eccentric has-been actor who's trying to get back into acting. So he goes to all these odd jobs and he does a lot of voiceover work. So it's just really interesting watching him to go to all these different auditions and compete for parts. So as far as British comedies, those are my 2 favorites by far. If we're talking about reality shows, I really don't follow any of them. I mean, I've seen probably all of them. I'm highly entertained by My 600-Pound Life, and just because it's so hot. And yeah, and I think, I'd like to change a lot of them around. I feel like they're a great foundation for what could be a great show. Like if we were to take, let's say, Undercover Boss, and you did Undercover Boss for small business. And then, like the guy walks in and it's just like a family business, like dad walks in and they're like, Dad? And he's like, I'm not Dad. Call me Carl. So there's a lot you could do with those shows, but full disclosure, I don't watch any of them.
Well, that's fair enough. And I'm laughing at my 600-pound wife because I'm just sitting there like, she gets on top. You kill two birds with one stone. She's arousing you and pressing your shirt at the same time.
Yeah, it's all about what you're into.
Yeah. Well, for me, I happen to be a reality show junkie. There are some reality shows I don't watch, and I just can't get into them. Like, I've watched My 600-Pound Life. That's interesting, but I hate the Bachelor and the Bachelorette and 90 Day Fiance and things that are just kind of silly and flippant. I like the challenge shows like MTV's The Challenge, History Channel's Alone, where they have to survive by themselves in a desolate location somewhere in the world, and whoever lasts the longest out of the 10 people who start wins $500,000. Now I find that fascinating, watching these people, how they cope with being all by themselves in a hostile environment and finding food for themselves and shelter and things like that. So that's probably right now the one I've been watching the most. I also watched Big Brother, which is not really challenge based, but it's something I enjoyed, and Amazing Race. But a lot of these reality shows right now, given the coronavirus situation, are on hiatus because they can't have, like, for instance, Big Brother usually happens during the summer, and they can't do it right now because of the virus, and because they can't have all these people living in that close proximity with each other for 3 months. So I don't know how that's going to fare after, when this fall comes up and the new season of Survivor and things like that start to happen. But I'm sure it's going to be a different outlook on all of that.
See, I'm right there with you guys for the most part. Like I said to Mike before we started recording, when it comes to reality shows, it's like you can almost have to kind of define it, because when it comes to reality shows, like, of course I enjoy things like professional wrestling or sports. I do get a kick out of, like, for, if you want to argue that these are reality shows, like game shows, in the sense of like Price is Right, Jeopardy, things like that. Or even the shows like Wipeout or American Ninja or American Gladiators for back in the day. Those, if they classify as reality shows, I absolutely enjoyed them. As far as, like, MTV's Roll Rules or the one where everybody's in a glass house, and everything else, those things I could give or take with. I don't care about them, but I don't care that they're on, if that makes sense. Or the talent shows like America's Got Talent. I get a kick out of, some of the contestants, but overall I can care less about the show, because I think it's kind of a cheap way for showbiz, in the sense that these people didn't really earn their spots, as opposed to somebody who's worked their whole entire life to be a singer or an actor or, whatever talent they're trying to showcase. So those are kind of cheats to me, but I don't care one way or another as far as those are concerned. The ones that annoy me to the fullest extent as far as reality shows are concerned, as I was saying, was the ones where it makes a mockery of relationships and marriage. The Bachelor and the Bachelorette definitely go there. Love at First Sight or Say Yes to the Dress. These shows piss me off because I think they give the wrong impression and idea to courtships and the sanctity of something like marriage, in the sense that, like, for example, like I was saying with Say Yes to the Dress, it very much placates on the materialistic side of things as opposed to the love side of you're getting married. This is supposed to be the pinnacle of your relationship, and you're more worried about the price tag of your dress, or the Love at First Sight, where people who never met each other before get married and have to stay married for a year, and then afterwards, if they decide they don't want to stay together, they get annulled. But to me, that's, again, kind of glorifying the fast food reality in today's society of, if you don't like something, just get divorced rather than work on it and make it better. So in those lights, I think shows like that are horrible because they send the wrong message.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think that maybe those shows, maybe things shouldn't be off the table? I mean, the same in podcasting. I mean, with any of our shows, is there anything on your show, for example, that is off the table completely, or are you willing to explore anything?
Yeah, politics. I've learned the hard way.
Yeah, I have to agree. Politics and religion for me, but I have had some guests who were quite religious, but I prefer not getting into that realm because it does alienate people, and politics definitely can be something that will alienate your listeners because not everybody's going to feel the same way, and you might wind up having somebody ticked off with you because of what's your guest said and lose a viewer or a listener. So yeah.
Again,
I can see that.
Again, what I'm suggesting to people who enjoy those shows, power to you. I these are the reasons I don't like them, but they're just my opinions. My word is not gospel. Don't say just because Chris said marriage show bad, it's bad. To me it's bad because it conflicts with my personal views on the subject matter. But if you enjoy it, then power to you. It's not like I'm calling somebody who enjoys the show a bad person.
Hey, Chris, if you could make up your own reality show, what would it be?
Surviving a podcast. I think that would be a neat one since it is a hot topic right now. It sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not. Seeing how the inner workings behind the scenes, because a lot of people who think podcasts or want to start podcasts, they think what we're doing right now, that's it. That's podcasting in a nutshell. They don't know all the research you do for your guests or your subject matters. They don't know about the promotional sides. They don't know about the editing, the clipping, the creating graphics designs and everything else. And then on top of it all, you're constantly thinking about fresh and inventive subject matter, so that way you have a show to put on every single time you do a show, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, something fresh every single time. I think it would be interesting to see people who have aspirations to start a podcast, send them in blind and slowly but surely kind of teach them, but let them figure it out, and that by the end see if it's something they would still want to do.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's pretty interesting. So like have one murder mystery, one comic, one therapist, and just kind of throw them all into their own thing. Don't even give them a chance to get their feet wet. Just let them figure it all out, kind of the way that we did.
Yeah, because I they're the corner of the industry right now is so saturated with content, and some of it's great, some of it is awesome, that may just not have picked up the listening audience yet. I've found a couple of them. Hell, I am one of them. Who I don't know if my content's great, but I mean, I don't have the audience I'd like to have. But then I've seen other ones where it's just like, really, this is what you call a podcast? You know what I mean? And credit to them, they're keeping going, but it's just like, what is the premise and concept? Like, why did you even bother starting a show? There's nothing here. Oh, look at how pink my toenails are. That's not a podcast. That's just glorification of pay attention to me because my parents didn't.
Yeah, there's a podcast I'm ashamed to say that I listened to called The Basement Yard, and the guy who started it, Joe Santagato, was a YouTube personality. So when he went to podcasting, a lot of his base from YouTube followed him. So he kind of started off with, a good amount of listeners.
Right.
And all he talks about is just junk. I mean, it's comedy. It's very raunchy comedy at that, but because he talks about bowel movements and just all kinds of stuff that you would cringe if you were in the same room and started talking like that with your mother or your father. That's not respectful. but I can see where what you were talking about. Well, you can't figure out how did this podcast become so popular with what they got as far as their topics, and you just really don't know. I don't know how much of Joe's audience is still from his YouTube listeners, or if he's picking up quite a bit of new followers. But I listened to him. I didn't ever watch his YouTube. So, but anyway. But then there's Joe Rogan. So you should never know.
Well, that's exactly it. And of course, podcasts change, and that leads me to a topic of conversation for both you guys. Like, you guys have both been podcasting for quite a while, but just like me, I'm actually in my fourth year, surprisingly enough, and especially with breaking the fourth wall. And it amazes me when I look back on the catalog for previous episodes of Breaking the Fourth Wall, how many times it's evolved and changed. It's nowhere near what it was when I first created it. So I wonder for both you guys would like Try Not to Laugh and In a City Like Yours, like how many renditions of your show did you go through as you were finding its identity?
Well, I don't know about renditions. I know that it's a long process of fine tuning what I'm doing now. I still have the same format that I had at the very beginning. I've just gotten better at it as I've gone along, or at least I think I've gotten better at it. At first, I was kind of really rusty on interviewing my guest, but now I've gotten to where I do that a lot more often. So I'm more comfortable doing that. But I do think personally that I've improved from where I was in the very beginning to where I am now, and that my show's a lot easier to listen to.
Fair enough. How about you, Andy? How many times did you take Try Not to Laugh back to the drawing board?
Oh, geez. We've tweaked our formula. I mean, we're well into the double digits now. Yeah, honestly, I mean, so we released episode 58 this morning, and I would say we've tweaked the formula at least 15 times by now. And I mean, the general premise of the show, conversational comedy, that's never going to change. But, the structure changes constantly. It's how long should the show be? How long should the guest segments be? Should it, who's interviewing the guest? And it's always changing. And I don't want to just use the word changing. It's always evolving, because when you go into it with a certain idea in mind, that's just, the bare bones of it. You don't know what it could possibly be. So as you continue, the week before, you realize, you're listening back to an episode, and maybe you listen back to it a second time, and you're like, oh, you know what? I actually really liked that we did something like that, or I really hated this thing that we did. It went on too long. And so you kind of naturally just filter out the things you didn't like. So the more you do it, the more you evolve.
Well, that's fair, and what these guys are saying is I would imagine normal core progression for a show, where with me when I first started Breaking the Fourth Wall, it was a roundtable movie critique show. We were, pretending we were actual film critics and would just pick on movies we didn't like. And quite honestly, it was horrible, not just sound and all that, because I was new to everything. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but the subject matter was just, I listen back to it now and I cringe. Like there's times I linger my finger over the delete button just to make those episodes disappear. It literally took me, I'd say, half the catalog to find the identity of Breaking the Fourth Wall. Because and quite honestly, it was getting hooked up with Steve Joyner and SJ Network that changed the identity of Breaking the Fourth Wall, of like, well, okay, let's do it as an interview show. Forget all this wannabe comedy stuff with it. I've got after hours for that. Let's just have Fourth Wall be sit down and have a conversation with somebody and learn about their life. And really that's where Fourth Wall finally found its identity. So I'm kind of jealous you guys already had your formula figured out.
Oh, we haven't figured it out. I'm not saying we've figured it out by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I mean, I would wager that if we're at iteration 15 right now, we'll probably be at, by the end of the year, 25 to 30, because it's kind of how it should be. I would imagine Howard Stern is at his thousands, because you should never stop progressing. The minute you find your formula, I mean, I think that's a really good thing to recognize. But if you're doing the same thing over and over, it's nice to have consistency in the show, and your listeners should know what to expect of you. But you should always keep them guessing. You should always keep everyone on their toes. So, I mean, I would guess, if we're at 15 changes now, for example, we'll probably hit our mark at, let's say, 200. And then we'll finally be happy enough with it where, I can comfortably hand my business card to literally anyone and be like, hey, check this out. As opposed to just have to explain myself and be like, oh, well, look, it's this conversational comedy show. And, it's not for the faint of heart. I always have to kind of like, kind of follow it up with this little thing after I hand someone a business card. It's always like, well, look, if you're a Mormon, you're probably not going to be into it. Right. But I am definitely pleased with the direction it's going. I just feel like it's it's not quite there, not at 58 episodes.
How do you feel about monetizing the podcast? Mine's not at a level yet where I can really feasibly do that, and it's not something that I started off doing thinking that, okay, I'm going to make money from this. I started doing podcasts because I enjoyed listening to podcasts so much. So I thought, well, I'd like to do something like that because I enjoy it so much. But as time goes on, how are you looking at maybe wanting to get to a point where you could, I don't know, quit your day job and just support yourself on the podcast solely?
I would imagine that that's kind of the ultimate goal for any of us, to be able to turn this into a full-time career would be great. As far as monetization, I don't have the numbers on YouTube yet to even think about monetization. However, since I released the audio versions of the podcast through Anchor, I do have, Anchor starts you off with a sponsor, them. So I get to record a commercial to put at the beginning of my podcast, and every time it gets played, I get a penny. So, I mean, technically I am monetized. I'm not making anywhere near money, but I technically I am monetized, at least in audio format, just because of Anchor. But yeah, I think that in the overall, we want the numbers and the listens enough. Like we all did this because we just wanted something to do, whether it be a hobby or we enjoyed listening to other ones and thought, hey, we could do that, or, whatever the case may be. Maybe we just had a dream one day of being like, radio DJs or something, whatever the case may be that we got into podcasts. I think we all came in with that mindset of like, this is just a hobby. But the ultimate goal, I think, is that we would all love to turn this into something that is profitable.
I agree. Yeah. I think it would be really nice. I mean, obviously, to be able to just wake up and, in your underwear and go down to your home studio and, just shoot the shit with your friends. And, I mean, why not? I mean, that sounds like the greatest job in the world. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to it and it's work, but it's definitely work that I'm willing to put in. So, absolutely.
It's kind of ironic that Andy says roll out of bed in your underwear and just jump on the computer. That's literally what I did on his when I was interviewed by him on Try Not to Laugh. I threw a t-shirt on just so I wasn't like bare chested, but
you should have kept it off.
I was sitting there in my boxers and just rolled out of bed to do the show. Went right back to bed when it was done.
Well, I record most of my podcasts in bed. That's my location for doing my podcast because they're only audio. I don't have video right now. Right now I'm in my dining room to record this, but so I find that it works out well for me doing it in the bedroom because of the sound quality of having that large mattress. It absorbs the echo and all that. But so yeah, I can definitely relate to rolling out of bed and doing something at least.
There you go, guys. Egg crates, U-Haul blankets, and a California King. That's how you take.
Yeah.
That's how you take care of the sound. Well, I want to backtrack a little bit before we move on to the next topic here. I did kind of take us off topic with the podcast thing, but Andy had asked me what I would pitch for a reality TV show idea, which led us down podcasting. But we never got your guys' pitch for a reality show that you would want to see done.
Oh God, that's such a hard question. Because I've watched so many reality shows. You guys might have an easier time at it because you're not that big into reality show. I really enjoyed for a while. They had something called "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here," and it was just a cluster fuck of stuff going on. Excuse the language, but I enjoyed that because it was like, oh my God, I can't believe these people are doing that. I would like to see that, a cross between that and the reality show I'm really into right now, Alone, but done with celebrities and see how long they could last in the wild, by themselves, trying to fend for themselves. That would be fascinating. It may be deadly. I'm not sure.
I just had an idea for another one, but Andy, I'll let you go first.
Let's see. Damn it! I think I feel like I shot my load with that first one on on that business one. Okay, reality show. How about let's do something with little people. How about little people marrying abnormally large people, but instead of 90 days, we'll make it 3 days. How about that?
Jesus. Oh man. What do we?
And we get to watch them consummate.
It's all of a sudden this is now reality shows on YouPorn.
On Spice.
Fans only. Another one I nowhere near what Andy just said, but another idea that just popped in my head is taking people out of their occupations into others. Especially like the mean side of me is like the people that are saying like, you know, a burger flipping job is just as real as like, say, you know, an architect, for example. So, okay, take 40, you know, like the ones where you swap wives for like a week, swap jobs for a week, take the CEO and have him be the guy up at the counter asking people if they want fries with that. And in turn, the fry flipper is the one trying to run a company.
Yeah. That's kind of Undercover Boss was similar to that, but not quite that involved as far as having the roles interchangeable. I think in Undercover Boss, the CEO worked with the people who were quote unquote below him, and that's how he learned that, you know, what kind of work they put into the company. But I don't think they had the clerk behind the counter go up to being a CEO.
Right. Usually, Undercover Boss, and wasn't that something that like the boss usually did when he revealed himself, and he found exceptional, and it's like, you know, I've seen what you do and all that, so I'm giving you a raise. I'm going to help out your sick daughter, and I want you to have the corner office and blah 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 because I've seen the good work that you do and what you devote. But yeah, I think it would be neat to just like flip roles where people who always say like, oh, my boss is a dick, or oh, it's so much easier for somebody who has this type of job or whatever else, you know, we all know people like that. Put them in the position where they get to see it may not be what they thought it was.
Oh, so they're taking the boss's role.
It's a complete flip. It doesn't have to be the boss. Like I said, we could have a cop and a fireman switch jobs for a week where the cop is now fighting fires, climbing the ladders, hauling the hose, you know, and the fireman's trying to do drunk stops and stuff like that, and just really get to see the world differently than what they used to view it from that person's occupation.
Yeah. I did like that other idea though. I mean, I think, you know, allowing an employee, let's say a lower level employee, to have to run a business for a day. I don't think most people understand the stress that, you know, business owners go through. And I mean, I don't own a business now, but I have in the past. And I mean, so now I could kind of see it from both sides now. And, you know, I'm never going to be one of those people who is, you know, pissed off at the company if they're like, look, we honestly can't afford, you know, 5% raises this year. We're doing 3% across the board. Like, some people get really annoyed and they're like, well, I'm walking. All right, well, good luck then. Because you don't understand what it's like to be an owner of a company, because, you know, those people lose sleep because they've got payroll on Thursday, or because, you know, someone didn't show up to work and now they're working the register on top of doing their own job just to keep things moving. You know, so it would be actually really cool to reverse roles that way. I like that.
Well, you know, it kind of is a perfect segue into the next topic of conversation here, with, especially since we talked about podcasts and now we kind of ended off with learning what it's like to be a CEO and a runner of a company. And some could argue that all of us are running our own companies in the fact of podcasting. And most of us have normal 9-to-5s on top of that company that we handle. So, and, you know, I know Andy's kind of younger, but Michael and myself, you know, we're above 40 and doing, and it leads to the next topic of conversation, which was brought to my attention was, and I thought this was a neat idea, was talking about trying to have some form of dating or social life past 40. And especially with trying to factor in the rest of life involved with it. Because at 40 years old, you're usually, on average, it's not everybody, but on average, you're paying a mortgage, you're paying a lot of bills, your health and your body's not what it used to be, you know, in the sense that you got to watch what you eat more, you got to work out more, or whatever else. Plus, you're usually like in the middle of or on the decline of what is your career. You know, do you even find time for dating? And, you know, even more question is, can you find quality love out there at that age? Because you would figure either the people that are single now are either divorced, which case they're damaged goods, or they're nuts. You know, all the good ones are married and taken. So, you know, I'll lead it off with Andy, because I think you're still in your 30s. So how do you view past 40 and trying to have that type of relationship life?
Well, I've been married since I was 27. So I'm now actually at 11 years.
Okay.
I guess my situation is a little bit unique. So maybe I'm not the best example, because my wife and we met back on AOL when we were 14. And I mean, we didn't meet in person until we were 21. But yeah, I mean, we basically, you know, we're lifers. And so we didn't have a lot of outside experience, but that's fine, because we're super happy. But, you know, I will say that, you know, just from having obviously friends that are my age that I graduated with and have, you know, remained friends with, I mean, I would hate to have to be out there, you know, at this age, mainly just because I feel like, I don't know, like, well, I'm also speaking from a married guy's perspective. You know, I would hate to have to go through it all again. Maybe if I had never been married, that's kind of different, because then you're just kind of playing the field and you're out there, you know, you're online dating and, you know, you're getting laid and doing whatever. But I think, you know, having to find a new partner after already being in a marriage, it's, I don't know. I mean, it can't be easy. And I imagine there's a lot of competition because you're online now competing with all these people, you know, at least when you're in person, and which I feel like people are kind of afraid to do, especially now. It's hard to meet somebody when you're wearing a mask. But, you know, if you're approaching someone now, I feel like people aren't even as open to it anymore. People aren't as social. Like people, unless you approach them, you know, via cell phone or, you know, app, they don't even know what to do with themselves. So I think, you know, and that bleeds into dating. I think dating is it's become a very strange thing, and it's very big. It's a huge business. I mean, I wish I had invested in it years ago, but I think in terms of, you know, actually looking for a relationship, I don't envy people who are dating nowadays.
No, and you're hitting a couple points right on the head. But before we delve into some of those points, let me get Michael's opinion on this, because this was his topic. So,
Well, okay. Well, I'm different in that I am asexual, so I don't have a partner. I've never been married. I don't have any children, and I'm not sure if I will ever get married. I'm not opposed to having someone in my life, a significant other. I kind of like that, but it would have to be someone who can, you know, deal with me and my hangups. What I found most difficult, though, are making new friends. I'm 58. I'll be 59 in October. A lot of the friends I made back in the day in college, we all moved on to, you know, different states after we graduated, and so I lost those guys. And even before then, the people I knew in high school had, by the time I got out of college, they'd all moved off to different parts of the country. So I've gone through several times where I've had to, you know, find friends from scratch, not knowing anybody. So that has been pretty difficult, and I still find it's difficult, right, you know, today at this age to meet new friends. But, you know, another problem with me is that I'm pretty much a hermit. I don't leave my house that often, especially with this coronavirus. I'm even more of a hermit. So it's kind of hard to meet people when you don't get out and mingle and so forth. And I'm not really big on uh, internet dating or chat rooms and things like that either, because I don't trust a lot of people that way. I think there's a lot of uh, people who are not very up and up that on the internet. So I get worried about, you know, all right, is this person legit, or are they really a 12-year-old girl, or, you know, what's the deal with that, or a 60-year-old guy? What's the deal, you know? But yeah, that's about where I stand on that.
all right. Well, I'm myself, and like I said, you both make a really good point when it comes to the thoughts of dating. I was married in my 30s. I waited till I was in my 30s to get married, and I married somebody I knew for 20 years, and the marriage lasted 18 months. So it was horrible. So I wasn't in my 40s, but I was going through that and being in the later years, and like all the people that I grew up with that would have been, potential partners or dates when I was back on the single scene were taken, and whether they were dating or they were married with children or whatever else. And when you start getting up there in years, especially nowadays, you start having to deal with the fact that they, like I said, they're the ones you wanted are married, taken, they have children. The ones that are still out there, they're single for a reason, whether that is they are divorced and they came from a bad relationship and they're still carrying that baggage. You're carrying that baggage. So that's never a good choice. Or, they're batshit crazy. And that's why nobody has landed them down yet. And the pickings just become a lot slimmer the older you get. There's a lot of factors you got to take into, I think, into consideration when you try to date older. Is you have to, say to yourself, am I willing to be a step parent? Because 9 times out of 10, who you're going to wind up with has children. Am I willing to put up with her crazy? Will it match my crazy? A lot of different factors in that. But I think especially nowadays, I'm lucky. I've got the person I'm gonna marry, with me. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But that initial dating scene again, that was a fearful thing when I was divorced. When I was getting divorced, was how am I going to try to do this again? And why would I even want to? After that experience. But there are a lot of factors, like you guys said. There's the lack of communication. There's a lack of intimacy. There's a lack of courtship in dating nowadays. Dating is Michael said it earlier. Even with the older crowd, it's people are mistaking lust for love. First and foremost. So dating is pretty much like, hey, let's go fuck. Excuse my language. And if I like the way you do that, then hey, let's get married. As opposed to back in the day where you wined and dined your date. You tried to impress your date. You tried to learn all about your date, and they learned about you. And then a year later, when you guys start showing your true colors, then you're relearning it, and everything else. I think a lot of that is lost in translation nowadays to the instant satisfaction crowd, and to like Andy said, the internet generation where everything is text message and Facebook Messenger and Instagram pictures, and they think that's a substitute to honest to goodness human interaction.
If it were me, I don't know. I feel like if I had to do it now, I would probably narrow my search to widows, because I don't think I can handle another guy being around my kids.
It's rough. It's a very hard thing. So far, it seems like the guy that, and it's very hard for me to say anything nice about the guy that my wife cheated on me with. But the one thing I can say about him, as far as I know, thus far, is he's treated my children with respect. So I got to give him at least that much.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
At least if he's being a good guy to them, I suppose that counts for something.
Right. So as much as I'm like swallowing bile by saying something complimentary to the guy, I've got to give him that much. But yeah, you're right. I think if I lost my relationship today and had to go back into the dating pool, I think I would look for like the 90-year-old rich widow.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some widows out there that are under 50. In fact, there's probably an app for that.
Yeah,
that's sad. You're right. I mean, what do you guys think? It's with the dating changing as it is. Do you think that helps or hinders people of?
I think it's fine for the younger generation because they're used to it. They're, they've grown up with computers and cell phones and things like that. People who are in their 20s and 30s right now. But for somebody like me, I'm not used to that kind of thing. I'm proficient on, electronics. I'm not, ignorant or anything. I can work my way around anything. when it comes to doing stuff on the internet, but I didn't grow up doing that, so it's not second nature to me. It's not the first thing I go to when I think, okay, I need to make new friends. Maybe I'll join this chat room. It's not the first thing I think of. The first thing I think of is what kind of event can I go to, or what meeting do I need to be attending in order for me to meet people my age who may have the same interest as I.
Michael, you should make a Match.com profile and tell people you're David Cross.
Yeah.
No, that's a fair point, and I think I don't know. I think it kind of helps the older generation to get to know these types of things, because when I think about when I was younger and trying to find a date, like, and when I say younger, I mean like teenage, early 20s. You know what I mean? Like everybody I ever heard is like, oh, go find a girlfriend at the bar. I never found a girlfriend at the bar. I found girlfriends at the mall, or the library, or places like that. And a 40-year-old can't go to the mall and pick up a chick. You know what I mean? Well, they can, but they get a little blue check mark above their house on Google Maps. I mean,
right.
So in that aspect, I think the technology aspect of dating kind of helps older daters, in the fact that it gives you at least a place to meet people. Otherwise, it's like, what do you do? Wait till the old age home?
I guess. I mean, you definitely have to get out there. I think it's good to, I guess, having a mix, consider it 50-50, go out there and try to meet people. Even if you're not into books, hang out at the bookstore. Even if you're not into whatever. I mean, think about where women would go. You know what I mean? Go walk around Marshall's for a while, or the Pottery Barn. You don't really need anything. Just grab a vase and walk around with it for an hour. See what happens. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the internet is probably a very useful tool. I'm sure it's very useful if you're just trying to get laid. It's probably slightly less useful if you're trying to find a long-term relationship, but they're out there. I mean, a lot of my friends met online, and they're all happily married now. So I mean, it's all very possible. And I think as we progress into the future, and apps keep turning into these kind of things that people default to, versus it's not like people use like real dating services anymore. And I don't think it's as common unless you're in a very specific culture where people are going to fix you up. Like your mom's going to fix you up with this lady's daughter that she knows at the nail salon. Like that's just it's becoming less and less common. And people are just online. Everybody's just meeting online now. You make your profile. That's like basically your little dating resume, and that's it. And you're out there in the world.
See, I agree, but to me, I mean, and you guys can correct me if you don't agree, but if that feels cold and impersonal to me. I know it's the way it works, but I mean, it to me, it lacks that human connection. There's no fear of reject, just like the people you argue with on Facebook, keyboard cowboys, because they have no fear of the consequences for their words or their actions. I feel dating online or meeting people online has the same thing. I can approach Cindy Crawford on the internet, because if she don't like me, she's just not going to respond back, as opposed to the butterflies in my stomach and, getting sick and pacing back and forth. Won't I walk up to freaking Cindy Crawford to ask for her phone number in real life? I think that's part of the things that kind of get lost in translation from that type of dating aspect. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't really think anymore. I just kind of exist. I've given up.
Well, I know a great way to find a date, whether you're 14, 40, or above. Go crash a 4th of July barbecue.
Yeah, but wear a mask.
So here we go. Main topic of the day. We're tomorrow's when this episode releases. Tomorrow is the 4th of July, the birth of America, the American culture, birth of the American dream, American freedoms. I know we're kind of in a dark place with America right now, but this is usually the time when people can put their political points of view or their love or hate for things that happen in this country aside and just celebrate the fact that we do live in the United States of America. So let's start talking about some of the great traditions of the 4th of July celebration and what we're all looking forward to tomorrow.
Well, growing up, the main thing for 4th of July for me was always the fireworks. I was never big into the day of the 4th barbecues and things like that. Although the 4th just does make me think of potato salad, which my mother makes a killer potato salad. So I always think of the 4th of July with potato salad. But the main thing that sticks out is the fireworks and shooting off all the fireworks and taking the firecrackers apart and getting a big, huge pile of gunpowder and seeing how loud I can make it go boom and things like that. But so for me, it was more, I guess, the destruction of the 4th that I enjoyed the most.
Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I really have a tradition. I mean, growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn, and I was close enough to the city where I was able to watch the Macy's fireworks happen from my window, because I lived in a really tall apartment building up on the 18th floor. So, I mean, if you want to call that a tradition, I mean, I did that, probably for, 9 or 10 years when I was a kid. I mean, the older I got, the more accessible fireworks became to me. So, I mean, that obviously became a bigger and bigger part of my 4th of July celebration year after year. Bigger parties, bigger explosions. I mean, there was one year it was just absolute insanity. We got together at my friend's girlfriend's house, huge bonfire, lit off a lot of fireworks. We were shooting fireworks at each other. I don't recommend that to anyone listening. But yeah, I mean, for the do it. And yeah, I mean, other than that, it's pretty much barbecue, hanging out, drinking, and going to work the next day hungover.
That's right where I am. Like when I think of family traditions, like growing up, I remember going out and getting hot dogs and hamburgers out of the barbecue and going swimming in the backyard pool, and then obviously watching the fireworks. I was raised by my grandparents. We didn't go to see them live. Usually we just watched them on TV. The fireworks usually got shot off over top of the Delaware River. It was almost like a battle between New Jersey and Philadelphia, because both sides of the Delaware would be shooting off the fireworks. So it was really a spectacular performance. It wasn't until I got older that I started, being introduced to like lighting off my own fireworks and, getting drunk and doing stupid things like Roman candle wars, which I highly recommend. I mean, go away. Yeah, quite honestly, now the traditions for me with being a parent is I get a kick out of watching my kids enjoy it more than anything else. But it to me was always the food and the camaraderie with the people that you decide to spend it with. But like when I think of the foods, like when I think of the 4th of July, like Michael Moore said, he thinks of potato salad, and I'm kind of right there with him, because I mean, traditionally it was always hot dogs and hamburgers, baked beans, and German potato salad. Like that was the 4th of July meal, dinner, every single year, and I don't change that. What about you, Andy? What is usually on the menu for the 4th for you?
I wouldn't say it's been intentional, but I could probably say that I've had a hamburger and hot dog every 4th of July as long as I can remember. I usually do both. Probably a slaw dog, because those are amazing. I figured that out when I was about 12. But yeah, I mean, pretty much, any barbecue you go to, people are going to have different stuff. And a lot of times I wasn't the one hosting them. So it was just, it was ending up at some friend's house or a friend of a friend. But, hamburgers and hot dogs, they're the staples that you look for at any barbecue.
Does anybody have that drunk relative that always makes a scene on the holiday?
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah. No, I've had uncles. I when I was younger, I had uncles who would have a little too much to drink, and they would start feeling their oats and pretending they were still teenagers, growing up in the house together. And, that's when I first got introduced to like people shooting off M80s at each other, and somebody winding up in the pool without their pants or underwear on. And, my mother finding it funny, but it's not funny when I do it. Yeah. Yeah. Last week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, I think everybody's got that one relative in their family, and if you don't, look in the mirror, because you're probably it.
Definitely.
That's scary. Yeah. Don't look in the mirror. Whatever you do, don't look in the mirror.
That's it. They say one out of every three friends, there's one out of every three friends who's an asshole. If you look at your two friends and they're not assholes, you know who is. So I mean, yeah, I curbed my drinking, but I still am that guy. If I wind up, I'm more like Michael Moore nowadays. I don't go out, I don't do things. As I said, I live vicariously through my children now, in that aspect. But I'm still the guy that's known that if I wind up in a group of people, I'm going to be the one that's doing something stupid.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. You guys have any memories of maybe a bad or misfortunate 4th of July? Something that went horribly wrong. God forbid somebody got hurt by a firework, or cops were called because you were too noisy, or God forbid fist fights or something. Like any negative thoughts to the celebration?
Just things that I've heard from other people, like the guy who one year set off a mortar from the top of his head and that killed him.
Oh my God!
Stupid things like that. But no, and 4th of July, like I said, the only thing I remember really are the fireworks and the potato salad. I don't remember much of anything else, and I don't remember anything bad ever happening on the 4th. But like I said, we didn't really, it wasn't that big of a tradition for us. It was just more of an excuse as a kid, to shoot off fireworks.
I get to play with fire.
Yeah.
What about you, Andy? Any memories that come to mind of things where you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened?
Well, I remember there was a kid that I went to high school with named Adam, and he worked for a company over the summer who did like big firework displays. And so, like random companies would hire them to like come and do, let's say, 4th of July in one spot or Labor Day in another spot. And so I guess it was one 4th of July. I think it was around 2000 or 2001. And he burned off like pretty much all the hair and skin on, I think, both arms and his chest when he was setting off. I don't know enough about fireworks to even tell you what kind of firework it was, but I mean, this wasn't like your typical like M80. I mean, this was like the real deal, like the type of things that explode 3 times when they're up and still up in the air and they're changing colors and all that fun stuff. And this all happened like right between his man boobs. So yeah, I mean, I didn't see him for a while after that. He was one of those people that I wasn't really that close with, but we would run into each other because we lived in the same town, and figure once a month we'd run into each other at the pizzeria or whatever. And he had disappeared for a while, and I recently saw him pop up on Facebook, and I've been meaning to ask him, if I could see a picture of his chest, but I figured after like 10 years that would be really awkward. I'm not sure how to break the ice.
Hey, how you doing? Can I see your book?
Yeah, it hasn't worked for me once yet. I don't know if it's going to work on a man.
You know what? The icebreaker now. Just send them a copy of this podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Hey, by the way, you're famous.
Yeah, but no. To answer my own question here, the only thing that comes to mind I remember one time was a couple years into my living in Colorado. I went to a firework display in this like baseball field, like a youth organization baseball field, and they were doing it. And the girl I was with at the time and myself, we were able to get like front row, like right next to the mortars, and lay out a blanket, lay on the grass, and look up and watch them, explode like directly above us. And there was one that misfired, and it literally landed in between her and I, caught the blanket on fire, Like we got out of the way fast enough, but that was a pretty scary moment.
Oh man,
We
I would
learned,
have demanded a new blanket.
yeah, we learned not to sit that close. You know, but beyond that, I don't think I've ever had like a really negative experience with any holiday really, but especially not the 4th of July. In fact, I remember that particular one was really cool with that one mishap being a problem, because there was kind of a little like carnival fair going on to lead up to the firework display. So you had like a couple rides, like the Ferris wheel, the zipper and stuff like that, and you had the little carny food concession places like getting funnel cake and stuff like that. So it was like a really neat day, and it was really fun up until that moment when it was time for the firework display, and we just were in the wrong spot.
I've never been on a zipper.
It's
Do you guys?
Yeah, I have. It's the one that it rolls around as it goes around.
Yeah.
I mean, it rotates, but at the same time, you're in a little thing that rotates itself. So, yeah, I always heard stories of people falling out of those.
If you shake the cart at the right angle when you hit that corner, the small end corner, you get the cage to start flipping over on itself. You know?
Yeah,
that's always fun, especially when you're like scared to death of it.
I'm getting nauseous thinking about it. I'm sorry, Michael.
Before we end the episode, I just want to touch bases and make sure we got our format down now. We're doing both video and audio. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we'll be available on YouTube and then on audio on all the major platforms.
Correct. I obviously I'm going to be releasing these. By the way, I was the one recording tonight's episode on Realm of the Mist's channel. I wanted to know if you guys wanted me to send you the raw formats to you guys to release as well, or do you just want the links when I post them?
Just the links would be good.
Yeah,
unless you want me to do the audio, release the audio, you can send me the audio and I can do that one.
No, I mean, I'm going to release that anyway, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to do it on your own individual platforms as well, or you just want the links to where I put them up.
Just the links would be good.
Okay. That's fair enough. And of course, in the descriptions down below, I'm going to want to put the links to your guys' individual shows. So that way, if you enjoyed Power Hour, definitely go check out the individual shows as well, because, great guests, great topics of conversation, great humor when it comes from Andy, and then you have me, I'm just kind of there.
Me too. Yeah. I'm just kind of here.
But, so we'll make sure that you guys have a way of checking out all the great content from everybody. I know everybody's got an audio platform or whatever, but you have YouTube channels and all too, right? Correct?
Yeah, I got YouTube, but I also for the audio for the Power Hour, I've been using Anchor. Do you want to go ahead and use that as to use that account to release what you've done here today for the audio?
If you want to do it on yours, yeah, I'll send you the audio. You can release it on Anchor. I was going to release it on Anchor as well. So
okay, well, let's go ahead and keep it on the same, because we've already have episodes that are out with audio. I think this is like the fourth or fifth episode. So I kind of like to keep them together.
Okay, yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
And, the big thing I'll ask you guys, because this is the first time I've hosted. I've been on one other Coast to Coast that's just a guest. But especially since we're releasing this as a first ever video, is this going to have a numerical, or should it just be Coast to Coast Power Hour July 3rd?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Just doing the Coast to Coast Power Hour July 3rd, 2020.
Okay, so that way I don't have to necessarily worry about episode
no
order. Okay,
right. The date stands for that.
All right, that works easy enough. Well, guys, to finish this off, then let's go ahead and go around the table and tell everybody about your podcast and where they can find you.
Okay, my name is Michael Lynn Moore. My podcast is Any City Like Yours and Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. You can find both podcasts on any of the major podcast listening platforms, including Apple and Spotify, TuneIn, and so forth.
All right. And Andy?
And I'm Andy. I'm one half of TNTL Podcast, stands for Try Not to Laugh. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TNTL Podcast, and pretty much any obligatory podcast platform as well.
And of course, I'm host of Breaking the Fourth Wall and CEO of Realm of the Mist Entertainment. You can find Realm of the Mist Entertainment on YouTube. And if you do, to make sure you hit the thumbs up button, like, share, comment, subscribe. Check out all the podcasts that are a part of Realm of the Mist Entertainment. And if you prefer your podcast in audio-only format, we got you covered. You can find Realm of the Mist Entertainment on Anchor.fm, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, and just recently, iHeartRadio. So we're finally on that as well. So I'm
Yay.
on that. And of course, guys, not just Realm of the Mist, but we also syndicate shows like Mr. Michael Moore's in a City Like Yours and Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. You got me saying Power Hour for it too. So you guys can catch rebroadcasts of their shows on Realm of the Mist as well. So it's one big happy family. Guys, it's been a blast. I think we have to talk about when the next episode is going to be. I don't know. Did we set a date for the next episode?
I think it was going to be released on the 15th, and we'll record sometime prior to that.
Okay. So keep an eye out for the next Power Hour on probably around about July 15th. Until then, have a happy and safe 4th of July, guys.
Happy 4th, everybody.
Happy 4th.
Have a good night, guys. Hey guys, it's Chris from Realm of the Mist Entertainment. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Check out all the other great podcasts that can be found on Realm of the Mist Entertainment's YouTube channel or our sister channel, Sounds Dicey Gaming, for all your tabletop needs. And if you prefer your podcast in audio-only format, check out Realm of the Mist Entertainment on Anchor.fm, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. To our Patreon supporters, we thank you very, very much. And if you're interested in being a Patreon supporter, please go over to patreon.com/Realm of the Mist. And just $1 a month gives you exclusive content and helps our channel out greatly. Guys, again, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode.